That child grows up like with very little independence. They're very needy. And then when they have adult relationships in the future, they're constantly like seeking out affirmation and love and independence because they're so dependent when relationships happen.
Welcome to 12-Week Relationships. This is your place for better relationships in weeks, not years. My name is Pye.
I'm Dr. Glenn.
Dr. Glenn, when we're talking about relationships, we're talking about all relationships, beginning with the one that you have with yourself, your friends, your family, and of course, your romances.
Absolutely. I can't put it any better than that. Absolutely. Coworkers, everyone.
Coworkers,
Every single
all of it.
person, all
Business
relationships,
partners.
everything.
Yes, this is a pervasive topic throughout every aspect of our lives, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Our listeners know this. They know why we're doing this. But I just want to mention, because from the sound of it, it can sound like we're only talking about romantic relationships, but we're not. What we have today is a listener's question that goes like this. And we do keep all questions anonymous. If you would like to be tagged in those questions, let us know. But, this is a relationship podcast and we want to keep things confidential, or at least that is our default mode.
Yes.
So if you want something
Unless
else,
otherwise.
yeah, let us know. But this is a question that she asked. With friendships, I feel like I put more effort into it than they do. I call, I text, I make the plans, etc. What do I do? So basically, we have a person who feels like she is kind of putting in the work, but not really getting the benefit, right?
Yeah, and that's a common thing that can happen. So it's definitely looking at yourself, looking at the dynamics of the relationship and trying to see if this is accurate or not.
Yeah, we have to look at a number of things.
Yeah, because it may be somewhat true, maybe it's not true.
Mm-hmm. Why don't we start by pulling out to kind of a bird's eye view real fast and just kind of looking at our relationship framework, right? So going back to this, and we're going to be referencing this a lot. So hopefully you guys have kind of got the introductory episodes and whatnot. But on one side, we have desire. Desire is going to make us want to spend time with another person. So we have the desire for the relationship, and this carries over to every single relationship, right? We desire to spend time with someone. Then we spend time with them. We hopefully are creating quality time. And then through those interactions, we learn whether the relationship is sustainable or not. So on the desire side, what we really have is these are the perceived benefits that make us want to spend time with somebody. On the sustainability side, what we have are essentially the emotional costs of maintaining the relationship. So if the costs go up, well, the desire tends to fade unless the benefits are really just that awesome, But when the costs go down and there's, more benefits, then we keep desire healthy. So what we're really talking about here is, in this instance, if you're putting in more effort into those friendships, you might end up feeling kind of resentful, maybe a bit used. And what's happening is because you feel like the emotional cost, the cost of maintaining these relationships is high, and the benefit coming from these relationships is not so high. And so it's hurting desire. It's hurting your want to go and continue.
Well, not only that, it seems like she's putting the effort to try to build a sustainable friendship.
Mm-hmm.
So she's putting all the work in to build a long-term relationship with these people that she considers to be close, and it's just not happening back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if that's not there, you're right. The cost is too high, and eventually you're just going to become bitter and angry.
Yeah, and she specifically lays out, when we talk about effort, we have a term inside of sustainability. There's 5 pieces of sustainability, just like there's 5 pieces of desire. Inside of sustainability, we have counterbalanced effort, which means in any relationship, there doesn't need to be the same effort being put into the relationship, but it needs to be balanced. Meaning, like, if she is doing, let's say, all of the planning and the texting and the communication and all that kind of stuff, you'd expect balance on the other side. Maybe the other person's not planning as much, but maybe when they get together, they're covering the costs. Maybe they are contributing in a different way. Maybe they're, it could be really anything as long as they're balanced there. So what she's saying is that really we don't have a counterbalanced effort, which means that the cost, the load is all on one person. And on the other side, inside of desire, we have reward and reciprocation. Those are 2 components that maintain our desire. Not only are they not it sounds like they're not reciprocating, But it also sounds like there's not enough reward there to make it worth her spending the time to do this kind of stuff. So then desire basically suffers, right? The costs are high, desire suffers, and you kind of just stop wanting those relationships, those friendships.
Yeah, because there's nothing sustaining the friendship moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like she's kind of at a crossroads where she's like, I'm not sure if I want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a number of things that I would jump into on this. And I guess what we're really trying to discover, that the question we're trying to answer is, are you being used in these friendships, right?
Yeah, because if you are being used, that's a red flag and it's time to just drop the friendship altogether.
But I mean, that's the tough thing for people, is how do you know that you're being used?
Well, once again, usually one-sided. Usually the person is kind of a narcissist, or they're on the scale of a narcissist. And everything is about them. Everything is about their time, their space. They don't really do anything in return out of their own convenience for you.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're in that space and it's either their world or nothing, and you're constantly entering their world, that's a sign that this is a toxic friendship.
You know, there's another flip side to it too, though. Yes, it could be a narcissist that maybe intentionally uses, or maybe that's just they only think of themselves, and it can totally be that, and you can be used. The other piece of it, though, can just be that there's not enough pieces of sustainability to make the relationship self-sustaining, if that makes sense. Like, inside of sustainability, inside of this, the emotional cost of a relationship, right? What we have here are components that, when they're aligned, there's 5 of these components. And when they're aligned, emotional cost drops. When they're misaligned, the emotional cost, or the maintenance of the relationship, goes up. And it starts with core values. And then it goes down from core values to change in growth, to conflict resolution, to counterbalanced effort, and then to common interests. So, for example, if you don't necessarily share the same values, if you're not going to have conflict resolution typically play with these less significant relationships, right? These are more casual friendships type things. So that doesn't become a huge factor.
Mm-hmm.
But if values are misaligned, and maybe there's not that many common interests, then it just might not be that sustainable of a relationship.
No, I agree. I totally agree with you on that. But let me ask you a question. Let's say that there was someone that you met, and then you don't have similar core values with that person,
Mm-hmm.
but they keep planning things over and over. Would you continuously just let that person do all the planning and you just show up and you do things on your own time? Like, would you be that kind of person, even though just because your core values are misaligned?
It would kind of depend, right? Because, again, I would go back to, what level of friendship is this? Okay, so when it was just me and my partner Yen, right? Well, we spend time with couples that are very aligned to who we are. You and Aki, for example, like we'll spend time together because we're super aligned, right? But when it comes to our children, we'll spend time with other couples just because our kids like to hang out together, and they're friends with their kids. But we know that we're not really that close as adults, and I don't need it to be, because it's just kind of a casual friendship, right?
But you guys are healthy though. But she's being used though. Would you use any of those pseudo friends for anything and just let them constantly plan things and do things while you're not getting anything in return?
Well, I don't know if she is used. I think that's what she's trying to figure out.
I see. Okay.
Is like,
okay.
I'm putting in more effort. I
see.
call, I text, I make the plans. What do I do?
I see.
She's not saying necessarily. I'm more so saying that, this can continue. If it continues, it can make you feel used or resentful towards it.
Got it.
And the question we're really trying to answer is, how do you know whether you're being used or not?
Got it.
So I guess going back to your question is, if someone was, if they have kids and I have kids and they frequently plan activities, yeah, I would bring the kids to those activities. I would try to find some way to contribute. Maybe I bring something. Maybe, I cover some of the costs. Maybe I do something so that the kids can hang out together and type stuff. But maybe I don't, because I don't really like to plan things. I don't, So I do have relationships like that, where when they plan something, I'll bring the kids to it. But otherwise, we're not really in touch, right? I would say that those are casual friendships. what I referred to in the book was situational relationships, right?
No, that totally makes sense. I see what you're saying. I mean, I think where I was getting at was that once it becomes this one-sided relationship, that is just a toxic relationship.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Like if, for example, let's say you and Aki and, me and Yen, our values were not aligned and, but you were paying for dinners and you were planning stuff and you were doing things. And yeah, I know like it's not that great of a friendship, but we hang out and you guys do all this stuff for us. That I would agree with you. That would be my like, it would be your fault for letting me do it.
Exactly.
And it would be a personal issue of me being like narcissistic and whatnot. But I think it's important to understand the circumstance of this, right? Is this a situational relationship where there can be a lot of intangible benefits that we don't consider?
Mm-hmm.
One of them being like, if you have kids, then, maybe maybe that's the benefit is getting the kids together. There can be other benefits, maybe it's workplace, professional benefits. Maybe it's a number of things. But I guess if you're feeling like it's unbalanced, then that means that there's something else going on. That means that you're putting in more than you should.
Yeah. So I think, to try to simplify this, it's either a trauma-related issue, a situational friendship, or it's working toward building a sustainable friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if it is situational and you're feeling this, I would say that there might be a boundary issue.
Yeah, maybe things are too enmeshed. Maybe you're seeing the friendship closer than it actually is.
Can you explain that? Like when you say enmeshed and you're saying that it's closer than it is, what do you mean?
Like maybe, if a person is really, I'm not saying this person, but like if you're really desperate to have a friendship, you may look at a person and it's more of a situational friendship, meaning that they're, we're just getting together, we're just hanging out, but you're maybe projecting all of that onto that person saying that, oh, we're becoming best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Versus actually seeing it for what it is, which is you guys are just getting to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're just hanging out. You hang out with the kids, and this is kind of a mutual benefit, but you're putting more into it than it actually is.
Or maybe you're just church friends. I've had this happen quite a few times where people think that they're really close to me because we chat every now and then at church. But I'm not really that close to them, because, and I'm not saying that this is what she is doing by any means, but I'm just saying like, you can confuse situational relationships with like something that is more significant. And when you do, you set yourself up for being hurt because your level of expectations of the relationship is higher than the actual relationship itself.
Yeah. And if you're able to define it as a situational friendship, then you can see, oh, there are some mutual benefits that I'm possibly getting. It's more about me giving more because I'm seeing it more than what it actually is.
Yeah. Like for example, when I used to go to church, right? The benefit of those situational relationships was that when I was in that environment, I could find people to have good conversations with, people that I enjoyed talking to type thing. So that was the benefit. But if I reached out to them and texted them and said, let's hang out, and they didn't respond back, there wouldn't be the expectation that they should have, or that, that they weren't doing enough, or that, because it's, that's what it is. But maybe it'd help if we went over like what a healthy friendship should be.
Okay. I mean, definitely on the sustainability side,
Mm-hmm.
You're building a long-term friendship, meaning that similar core values. There is counterbalanced effort, meaning that there's a give and take in this relationship. There's a healthy reward and a desire to want to continue to build this friendship with this person.
And it's mutual, right?
And it's mutual.
So if you were to practically lay that out, what it looks like when you're creating a friendship that's going beyond situational, what would it look like practically?
You guys hang out together. You guys do similar activities together that's based on similar interests. Like we're business partners,
Mm-hmm.
we're friends, but we have similar interests in this kind of personal development and growth. That is one of the shared core values we have. And so that's a driving factor in the things that we do together.
Would there be, kind of more of a balanced effort in terms of would I invite you? Would you invite me? Would it be back and forth?
Yeah, it would be like a back and forth that takes place. Like,
Mm-hmm.
You plan a dinner, we plan a dinner,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have an activity, then we have an activity. We go over to your house, you come over to our house.
Yeah.
So there's this, it's not like, it doesn't have to be 100% equal, but there's this mutuality and understanding that takes place.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that we talk a lot about, in terms of we have to understand that when it comes to, it doesn't matter how long you've been friends with somebody, it doesn't matter whether you're married, doesn't matter whether it's a business partner. When it comes to this idea of, balancing effort and reciprocation, if I say no to you on something, even if we've known each other for 14 years, 15 years, 20 years, I don't know why those numbers were in my head, but those numbers were in my head. But even, it doesn't matter how long I've known you, if I say no to something, that's going to hurt your desire to keep inviting. And eventually you're going to stop inviting. So I have to know that each time I say no, then I need to reciprocate. I need to show you, it's kind of the ball's in my court at this point. I need to make the next invitation to say, hey, I do desire to spend time. Because with enough of those even casual no's of like, oh no, I'm busy tonight, or oh no, I can't do this, then you do kind of shut off the other person's desire. They're going to stop inviting.
Absolutely. And it's being very mindful of that. And it's basically showing respect for the relationship as well.
Yeah.
Right? You're understanding like, hey, there has to be some form of give and take.
So this is where we cross into that narcissistic zone, right? Because in that relationship, where a healthy friendship, you would have one person inviting, then the other person, then, again, different ways, they both contribute in different ways, but there's reciprocation between the two of them. There's a balanced effort between, the different activities and the things that they're doing. There's a mutual desire to spend time with one another, right? But in a narcissistic environment, one person has that desire and the other person uses it for their benefit.
Correct. And then usually when that happens, it's usually based on their own trauma issues, right? Because they're projecting all of their insecurities onto that person. And the person is like, cool, man, I'm going to continue to take it. And it's all about me. Come along.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep using you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the interesting thing is, what can that look like in a practical sense? Because when you say it from that standpoint of like, this is one person's trauma and this is the other person's, narcissistic tendency using that, it almost sounds intangible. So practically, what does this look like? Why would someone continue with this?
So in terms of healthy relationships, it'd be based on similar core values like we discussed, right? So there's a mutuality, there's shared values, and this is how you build healthy friendships. But if you have a trauma issue, like for example, there's basically like 4 basic attachment styles when you're raised as a kid. So one of the attachment styles is if you have parents that basically they raise you to serve them, or like you're there for their purposes, right? So instead of like building a child to be independent and to build structure in their life, their sole purpose is based on, you're there to serve them and do everything on their terms. Mm-hmm. That child grows up like with very little independence. They're very needy. And then when they have adult relationships in the future, they're constantly like seeking out affirmation and love and independence because they're so dependent when relationships happen. Mm. So usually when they'll seek out people that are narcissistic, where they can play out their pain of constantly being dependent and needy, right? Whereas a narcissist person, they get to be the narcissist, like, cool, man, it's all about me. And they just do their own thing and they push the person away. Those two types of attachments complement one another.
Yeah. So for the narcissist, their benefit is in sort of being wanted, right? This other person that's continuously doing making the effort and, I'm awesome because they really just want to be friends with me.
It's all about me. Like usually the narcissist grows up in an environment where the parents just let them be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, do whatever you want, kid, whatever you want. Or they're so difficult, like, Johnny, do the dishes. F you, mom, I ain't doing no. Okay, Johnny, we'll just leave you alone, son. Just do your own thing.
Just do your thing.
You just do your thing. So then they just leave them be. So that develops a sense of narcissism. And then a lot of times those trauma pain points are like attraction bullets to one another. And then people are attracted to one another.
Yeah. So for the other person, this side, the one that's playing out their trauma, the fact that they're chasing can almost fit this weird, twisted sense of reward based on, we've talked about how values can come from either positive experiences or from trauma, right? And so you are getting benefit from the relationship when you're on that side, but your benefit isn't the way that you want it to be. It's in sort of tying back to the way that you experienced relationships growing up.
You're playing out your pain.
You're playing out this pain and it feels normal and it feels natural because you're chasing and you're doing the same things that you were. And that is your reward essentially at that time until you overcome it.
Yeah. And then that's not desire. That's like pain coming out. So like healthy desire is core values. This is you like feeling euphoric and like, wow, I got to make this work because this is so exciting. It's actually just pain coming out that you can work through.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate benefit.
Okay. So in a healthy dynamic, you have something that's naturally sustaining, right? In the friendship. In an unhealthy dynamic, you shift sustaining the relationship to one person. And it could be a number of reasons, but either way, you're the one person that's holding it up.
Yeah, and if it's a trauma type relationship, it's all about independence and introspection and understanding, why am I doing this? And this, what do I need to do to gain more independence moving forward?
Yeah. So maybe my first step in this, if I were evaluating a relationship to see like, am I being used in this? I would first look at, the relationship itself. Is this relationship, is it situational? Is this, are these coworkers? Are these church friends? Are they, our children's friends? Those are situational relationships where we need to look at them and say, okay, the reason we're spending time together is just a singular underlying common interest. Nothing else aligns, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a situational, casual relationship, but we need to lower our expectations. If it's not that, then I would go to step 2. First, I kind of have, I've set low boundaries for myself. Why am I the one that is going and supporting and just maintaining these relationships instead of them being naturally sustaining? Why am I feeding into this? And that would go into like, maybe this is tying into some area of past trauma. Maybe you are used to these types of relationships and you kind of seek them out.
Yeah, and you'll know because there'll be a pattern that's constant in your life. Like if you're constantly being used, relationship after relationship, that lets you know that this is a trauma issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's not, then you can, have the conversation with that friend and be like, what can we do to build a more sustainable friendship based off of core values?
Yeah. But I find that in most of these instances, what we're looking at is a situational relationship that for one person is being perceived as something more. I don't want to say the majority of them. I want to say a fair number of them, because there are plenty of instances too where it is the person's, narcissism that is feeding into it. But going back to like, were this a healthy friendship, right? You can have a healthy friendship start as something situational. In fact, this is very common for a long-term friendship to begin as just a situational relationship. What is it? Well, it's, again, going back to that person that you met at church, going back to a person that you met, at your job, going back to a person that you met, while you're in the gym, maybe doing jujitsu or an activity or whatever it is. You initially meet over that one thing. What changes from that being situational to, now a new potential long-term relationship is the short conversations that you might have in those places that kind of show that maybe you think similarly. You have similar values and beliefs. And then maybe you have other interests. And you start to realize that, hey, there's this person's kind of pretty cool. Like talking to them is insightful. There's reward in that, right? There's reward in that thought exchange of ideas and whatever it might be, and being able to do those things. And it leads you to basically spending a little bit of time at the beginning outside of that situation. Then you do that and it kind of, everything goes great and it's just more fun and more engaging. Then it leads you to create another, opportunity outside of that situation. And it starts going back and forth where both people start to kind of reciprocate. When you see that, that is a situational relationship that is going into a long-term friendship. But when it's just that one interest that's kind of binding you, that's it. It's not yet to that place.
Yeah, and it actually can go in reverse too, right? Because you're building a situational friendship at work. It's extending to other environments,
Mm-hmm.
but then maybe that's complicating things that are happening in the workplace. So maybe this person is dialing it back for some personal reasons. So that could be another factor too.
Yeah. All right. Let's bring this one home.
Let's do it.
So in summary then, I guess what would be the first question you'd be asking for this situation? What would you be asking of yourself?
Is this a situational relationship?
Is it situational, or is this potentially something long-term?
Or is it a long-term friendship?
Friendship.
Yeah.
And if it's situational, we probably need to adjust the expectations a bit.
Yeah, set boundaries within yourself and recognize that, oh, this is just the workplace friendship, or this is just the getting together at the church friendship,
Hmm.
or whatever the case may be, that this is just what it is.
Yeah. So if we're looking at something that is gone beyond a situational relationship, this is a long-term friendship. And there is this constant kind of, well, I'm doing more. The effort is not balanced. This kind of feeling of maybe I'm being used or maybe I feel resentment towards this. The next questions would, I think, be asking why? Like, why am I still here? Why am I doing this? Why have I not set boundaries? Why?
Yeah, and then looking at yourself and saying, okay, is this a trauma related issue that I have?
Yeah.
And one indicator of that is if this is a repeated pattern that's happening in your relationships, if you look at your history, that lets you know that this is a trauma issue and this is something that you need to work on.
Yeah. And the other side of that too could be that, we all get into these minds where we think we're doing more than we actually are. And the other side of that too is maybe there's a lot of benefits that you're not perceiving. Maybe you're not noticing what the other person's doing. Maybe you're just kind of in a certain mind right now where you're only seeing one side of it. So it could kind of go both ways when you ask yourself, why am I still here? Why am I staying? Why do I have these expectations and these low boundaries? Maybe you begin to realize like, oh, they do contribute just in a way that's different from how I do. Or you start realizing, hey, this is a pattern and I'm doing this in every one of my relationships. And this is something that I got to address within. And that's why I set low boundaries. That's why I'm here, because I'm feeding this past trauma.
Yeah, and you bring up such a good point, because if you have to define the relationship correctly, because if you see it more than what it is, it's going to skew everything that you see,
Correct.
right? And then so if you see it as a situational friendship, you can see, okay, there's some mutual benefits in this.
Yeah.
For sure. And that helps you see things in a healthier lens.
Yeah. As soon as you misclassify it though,
That's tainted. The whole thing is tainted.
yeah, because your expectations go along with whatever that is, right? Like you have labeled this as a close friendship, but in your mind, this isn't the way a close friendship should operate. So your expectations get super ratcheted up. And for the other person, it's kind of just a situational relationship.
Correct. And then you're projecting all of your issues onto that relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then it can extend, right? Like you mentioned, it could go to work, then to another environment, to another environment. It's leading toward a possible sustainable friendship,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then if there's no mutuality on that buildup, then that lets you know that maybe this isn't a friendship worth sustaining.
Yeah. The key to really seeing that though is that you start to see it go both ways. It's mutual. There's reciprocation there. There's a balanced effort between both individuals. And both people want the relationship to continue, right? It should naturally sustain itself. And when it's not, that's when you have to ask yourself a couple difficult questions. Is this situational? Am I playing out trauma?
Yeah. Do we have shared core values that we can build upon or not?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a common thing too. Like friendships, you try to extend it outside of work, it just doesn't work, right? So then it goes back to just having that friendship at that one place.
Yeah. And it doesn't extend because there's not enough of those pieces of sustainability are not in alignment.
Correct.
We just have that one common interest, and that's okay.
And that's okay. So you learned, and okay, awesome. Then we'll just keep it at this situation of work or church or whatever it is that it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really love this question. So I wanted to thank our listener for submitting this one.
Thank you for that great question.
Hopefully everybody enjoyed the episode. If you guys did, I'm going to give you a little tip on how you can help us out. It's not really a tip. It's like really a favor. I would love for you guys to hop onto the iTunes store. You guys can leave a review for the 12 Week Relationships podcast. Just know that it's not really helpful if it's a negative review. Glenn doesn't like those.
Yes, please keep it positive.
But if you guys have any critique, if you guys have questions that you guys want to submit, you guys can find us on 12 Week Relationships on Instagram. Send us a direct message, ask your questions, tell us what you guys would like to hear more of, whatever you want to critique, all of that jazz. We'd love to bring it into our podcast. In the meantime, though, you guys can also hop on to 12weekrelationships.com, where you can sign up for either individual or relationship coaching, couples coaching through Dr. Glenn. You can sign up for the 15-minute consult. He'll hop on the phone with you, explain exactly what he can do for you. And yeah, we have an awesome program. We have a full clinical trial going on right now, in addition to clients coming in. It's kind of
And it's just been awesome meeting people through the consults. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Their stories, like, it's been awesome.
So thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you guys back here same time at same place next week. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye.